Hi guys, it's April and I have a fun little surprise that came to my mailbox this past week, and that is the Ohuhu oil-based colored pencils. I was kindly gifted these for a review. I was contacted in my email inbox and they asked me if I wanted to give these a try. And I figured it might be interesting because oil-based colored pencils are probably some of my favorite. I have a full set of the Polychromos and a full set of the Holbein that I always use. I tend to use them together and I love how they lay down color. So of course, when they asked me to give these a try, which is more of an entry-level oil-based colored pencil set, I had to give it a go because I want to know if it's going to be something that I can recommend to you guys. So here we are with the 72-pack set, which I believe is their biggest set of these oil-based colored pencils. And I have opened this, but I haven't used any of them yet because I wanted to make sure that everything was in okay working order. So it does come in this really pretty tin. You have a color chart that you can fill out, which we will do together, and then a manual. And then we have the color pencils themselves. There are two trays. We've got this top tray and we've got this bottom tray right here. One thing I do want to note first off the bat is I don't know the color light fast of any of these. They haven't been marked that way. So these are pretty much just like grab these color pencils and go, and don't necessarily use them for something that you want to last long term unless you have other means of preserving whatever piece of artwork you're doing. But they are very similar in barrel style to the Polychromos and the Holbein. They are a 4 millimeter color pencil. I can focus on that. I don't know if I can, but they feel nice in your hand. This is the style of colored pencil I have. I do have both a Holbein and a Polychromos right here, so you can see they are very similar all around. They're about the same size and they're capped as well. They have labeling, so you can see the Ohuhu branding, and then they have a number and the name of the color, and then some of the legal stuff that they conform to stamped on here as well, which is interesting. I can't say I've seen it on each individual colored pencil like that before, but it is there. So these are very similar, even across the weight of the lead itself. So it will be interesting to see how these lay down compared to each other. I think I'm going to do a small test on that. But before we do that, I am going to fill out the color chart and then give you some of my opinions. Okay, first thoughts initially after just taking all the colors and swatching all of these out. They are a little scratchier than I kind of hoped for. They are, like I said, an entry-level colored pencil. You can get them anywhere for $34 to $44 right now, the last I checked. So I know it's probably not a fair comparison to do them against what I normally use in the Polychromos and the Holbein. But it's hard for me not to because those are my go-to colored pencils. So there is a scratchiness to them, and it might be because they're just right out of the tin. So I am going to at least color a little bit of a coloring page with them just to see how they start to feel after you sharpen them and you're playing with them for a while. Overall, the color range is pretty nice. You get a decent range. The white is a little bit more translucent than I usually find in a lot of the color pencil sets that I enjoy using. I like the white to have some strength there so I can actually use it as a highlight. I don't think you'll get much out of that white. But the rest of the colors, I mean, they have a decent pigment payoff. I struggled a little bit with the lightest yellow. That was hard to get some of that pigment out. That was probably the scratchiest out of all of them. But I do really like how the gold and silver went down. Those were very creamy, and those are colored pencils colors that I usually struggle with in the color pencil sets. I know for the polychromos, those ones are really, really scratchy, so I never really like using them. But these ones I definitely use. I like the metallics in this set. But with that being said, I'm going to do a quick swatch comparison between the Holbein. I've got this magenta, and then the Polychromos, I have a fuchsia, which I think will play nicely with this peach, and I want to see how all of those compare together. So I have this little test strip. I am going to sharpen this. I want to see how this feels to sharpen one of these. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, so it's not too hard to get to a nice point. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Ohuhu. I'm going to keep building that color. It is kind of dusty. So we've got a lot of crumbs coming off of that. Let's see. And then I'll do the polychromos. So the color payoff between the two is pretty similar, but you can kind of see that the polychromos isn't nearly as crumbly. So I think that's where some of the scratchiness is coming through. I mean, that isn't a bad lay down at all. Then lastly, I will do the Holbein. It's probably the smoothest out of all of these. But also the most expensive. This one is a little more crumbly than the poly. Let's see if some of that's dust or if it's just me. I don't know if it's the color I chose, but this Ohuhu wasn't nearly as scratchy as some of the lighter colors. And it might have been because of the sharpening. I'm not 100% sure. So this would be the Holbein. So overall, like I said, you can see you get some of the same payoff in color, and you can get that nice layering before it gets too waxy. But like I said, it's also very, very dusty. All of them have a little bit of dust, but Ohuhu has a lot of dust that comes off when you really start to press in and really start to burnish those colors. But overall, it wasn't as smooth of a laydown as I would like, but it wasn't horribly bad either. So, with that being said, I do want to pull out coloring page because I really want to get a feel for what it actually feels like when I'm using them and not just straight out of the tin, first time out of the box without sharpening. We're going to see how it goes in this coloring book. This is one of my favorites. This is Succulent Dragons. There are little baby dragons on these corners, and I think I want to color one of them. Question is, which one? I want to pick one where I can get a lot of different colors. So I can try them out. Kind of like this. So I got my little rainbow dragon done here. So after working with these for the last, I think this took me about 30 minutes or so to color all of this in. I will say I did quite enjoy working with them. They layer up to a point and you can get some pretty gradients going on if that's the way you like to color. I enjoyed how it all came together. They are still a budget pencil, so some of the payoff isn't as great as I would like it to be, and they are very dusty, and I did end up breaking a couple of the tips. But for a budget colored pencil, I really like these. These would probably be my go-to for a budget set. Like I said, I'm a little more drawn to the oil-based. The payoff is just so beautiful. So I did enjoy this. I do have some information on where and how you can purchase down in my description if you would like. And if you want to get a feel for how maybe oil color pencils work before you go full into maybe, say, more of an artist grade set, I do recommend starting with a set like this. One thing I will note is I don't believe you can get these open stock. So if you end up using up a whole colored pencil, you're going to have to buy the whole set again. Now, they aren't terribly expensive. Like I mentioned before, you can find them anywhere between $34 and $44 as I'm filming. But that could get a little interesting if you keep running out of the same color and you end up having to buy 3 or 4 sets and you've got 3 or 4 of one color at that point. That's why I like being able to buy open stock, because I can just replace that one pencil. But in all honesty, if you were to get a 72, okay, let's be generous and say you can find this set for $35. There are 72 colored pencils in here. That's like pennies, just cents per each of these colored pencils. So I don't I don't see them ever becoming open stock. But yeah, overall that was an enjoyable experience. If you're looking for a colored pencil set, this isn't a bad one to go with. And I know Ohuhu has been expanding its offerings, and they've become quite the brand in the coloring book market. I don't have a lot of fault with them, just besides the fact that they're not open stock and there are a few colors that are a little bit scratchy and they are a little bit crumbly, but overall, it is a good experience with these. But I will leave you with all of that information and you can decide if this is a set for you. I hope you found this review helpful. If you would like to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe down below, hit the bell, do all the things to get all of the notifications. And I do hope I will see you guys again in another video. I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.